Welcome to a new video in my SAP GUI scripting and SAP functions series. In this video, I do the first example of using the SAP functions, and in this particular one, I will be using a function module which allows me to change SD sales orders in ERP. As always, the link to this particular Excel file is available in the video description. If you are new to SAP functions, I highly recommend that you watch my first video on this topic, which explains the basics of SAP functions and how to create your first function call from Excel to SAP. The process is going to be rather simple. I have the list of orders here in column A from line 10 downwards. I have, for each of the orders, I have a status field which should be set to be processed for any orders that actually needs to be processed. And when this line gets updated, SAP updates the number of entries that are queued for processing using a simple count if function. And for this particular example, I will show how to change a sales order header field, which is in this case is going to be a PO number, and also how to change an item field on the first line item, which again in this example is going to be a receiving point. And I will be also showing how to change a text type, which again is going to be a header text. So using this Excel is again simple and quite similar to my previous GUI scripting examples. So you put the sales orders, you are setting status 0, and you click on the start script. I'm not going to execute the script right now because it's really not much is happening in on the screen. We just need to wait until the update is done. But let's dive straight into the code to see what's happening in Excel. So I press Alt F11 to go into the editor, and again I'm going to skip some of the basics here which are covered in the first video. But just to recap quickly, there are two functions here at the end, the reset log and the add log, which is only used for the logging functionality, which would be a little bit more useful in this particular example as opposed to the previous video. I also have some global variables declared here, which are needed for the to create the main object, and I need 4 SAP specific references under tools and references. So you need them, otherwise the script is not going to run. Again, the details are covered in the first video. What we are doing here is, sorry, let me go back to the Excel the worksheet. So when you click on Start Script, then it calls a function, calls a method which is called the Start Script in the code in the Visual Basic Code. And if I skip to that, then what is happening here is this method or this function handles the basic setup of the routine and logging into SAP. So we are creating some of the global variables, and just like mentioned before, I left this piece of code here which can be used to auto login or set the system parameters to enable auto login to SAP. And at the end, you log into SAP. So you call the logon function, which returns true if you manage to log on to SAP. And if it's false, if let's say you fail to log into SAP, then you're getting this message. So this can be a case where, let's say, you don't have RFC rights, and we just display a message on the screen and also in the log saying that we didn't manage to get into SAP. And then finally there is a piece of a cleanup code which just logs off, calls the log off function and displays a message saying that the script is completed. If we manage to log into SAP, then all we are doing here is we look into the in this main worksheet, and we are checking whether these fields, column A, has any value. So if there is any order number here, if there is order number, then we check whether the status is set to 2 if it needs to be processed. And if this is true, we are calling a function which is run script for the current line, and the while cycle just makes sure that this logic is continued until we find an empty line. So that's when the processing stops. So let's go into the run script, because that's where most of the magic happens. In the beginning, I'm just setting some some local variables. So I need the document number, and I need the free values that are stored here. So the PO number, the receiving point, and the header text. And that's where the first important message is that I had to learn the hard way is when we are passing information to SAP via these functions, in most cases the SAP expects these IDs. For example, I found the same for document numbers or business partner numbers, that they have to be in a proper format. So if you go into so if I go to SE16 and VBAK and I look at the order numbers, you see that the orders have trailing zeros. So when I pass the information to SAP, I have to make sure that I have trailing zeros as well. So I just added this code which adds a lot of trailing zeros to the document number, and then it clips to the last 10 digits, which is the length of the order field in SAP. And then I get the PO number, the receiving point, and the header text. But since these are only text fields, I don't really care about the formatting, or it just doesn't matter. We update the status of the line item to 3, which is why is it invalid? Oh, I have to look at that. So which should be to be processed, processing, and then we just add a message saying that the logon to SAP was successful, and we try to call the function module. And the function module we are going to use here is the BAPI sales order change. And we should go back to SAP just to understand this BAPI a little bit better. So I'm just going to call the transaction BAPI, because this is what I use to find an appropriate transaction function module. So I go to sales and distribution, sales orders, and change from data. And you see the function module is BAPI sales order change. If you go into documentation, you find some fairly good but summary documents on how this function is supposed to work. And the important thing is you have these update flags which you need to indicate whether it's a U or change or a D or delete or I and add. So we are going to use the U because we are updating the orders, and we will also see that in most cases there will be a structure for, let's say, the order header, and there will be another structure which has an X at the end, and that's where you indicate whether you want to do an update or a delete, and you also need to indicate which fields you are actually updating. And one more important message here is this commit control. So by executing this function module, the BAPI change is going to update the order, but it will not commit the changes to the database. So we need to call another transaction, which is the BAPI transaction commit, to update the database, to save the changes to the SAP database. So going back to the code, this is going to be our first function. So the function is our change function. So just as in the previous example, set function equals functions add and BAPI order change. Sales order change. And we can use the same test tool just to see how that function looks like. So I in the sales order document, I need to specify, so importing parameter sales order document specifies which order we want to edit. And then you have the order header in, which is the sales order header structure. So you see most of the sales order fields, and that's where you specify the field that you want to update. So in my case, I'm going to I think I'm updating this field, but I'm going to see it in the moment. And as I said, there is an X field in most cases together with the structure, in the case the header structure. And if you look at this, it has almost the same structure as the order header in, but there is an update flag. So this is where we are going to say that we are going to do a U and update, and you need to mark X, the field that you have updated in the other structure. And in the tables that we get back, well, not only back, but like the item information, the partners, or the order text is going to be passed via tables. And we will use the return table to get the information back from SAP. So we will update something on the item, and again we will pass data in the order item in and the order item in X. And again, the in X has the same kind of structure as we have seen before. So there is an update flag, which should be U, and then there is the individual field flag, which needs to be marked as X wherever we are making the update. The only addition here is now we have an item number as well. So this is how we indicate which item we are making the changes on. And again, you see the item have trailing zeros as well. So we need to make sure that we set the data in the same way. Order text is well, this table doesn't have an X because well, either you create or update an existing text, so you just have document number, item number, text type. Well, we'll see in the code how it gets maintained. Going back to the Visual Basic code, so as I said, in the importing parameter sales document needs to be set to the document number, and this document number is already have the trailing zeros now. So SAP functions.export sales document.value equals to the document number, and in the header X we say that okay, we need to update we are performing an update on the header field. And unfortunately, what I find from several forums is that when you have like an importing parameter like this, which is a structure, if you try to refer the values in the structure using the text or the ID, for example, sales_org, it doesn't always work. But doing this way, which is says value 1, it always works. The only problem is that you need to keep the values. You just basically have to count the values. So this is the purchase order number, which is, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is the 9th field in this structure, and this is why I'm saying that the order header in dot value 9 equals my new PO number. So order header in value 9, and in the in X structure, we put the update flag, so that's always field 1, or the first field, and then anything else is basically a +1 field than what it was in the order in structure. So in the in X we say that the first field is U for update, and then the field 10, which is basically 9 + 1, needs to be X because we just updated the purchase order number. So these two, so if you make any field updates, these two lines needs to go with each other. So you do in the in structure, or the order header in or the order item in structure, and then in the X structure you make the same field as X. I hope this was clear enough, because it's not really complicated, you just need to get used to it. So the next one is we are going to update the receiving point, and the receiving point is an item field, and again, just like for the header, we have two structures, or in this case two tables. One is the order item in, and if I display, then what is it? It's actually receiving point is field number 61. So I'm not going to count to 61, but and I don't remember the field name from the top of my head, but it's something like REC underscore point or something like that. So you actually, well, I did actually create 61 from the beginning. So in the order, in the in structure, the order item in, because it's a table, so again, just remember what you see on the screen. So the order header in is it's a single structure, but these tables can have multiple lines. So first you always need to call the function append row to create a line in the table, and then you refer to the fields with, obviously it's like 2 dimensions, so the row ID and the column ID. So going back to the order item, so your first field is item number, so I just hard coded item 10, and then the second field that we want to update or populate is field 61 with the receiving point. And then you do the similar things for the order item in X. You do append row first, and then the first value is the line 10. Then the next one is the update flag, which is U, because we want to update. And then 61 plus 1, 62 is X, because we are updating the receiving point. So these few lines are responsible for updating one single field on the first item of the sales order. So if you have structures like the sales order, or if I go back to the, sorry, if you have, if you need to make changes like order items, which is in a structure, but if I scroll here, similar, you see conditions. You have conditions in, condition in X, schedule lines X, and that's probably all. Then you need to create them separately as different, the in and the in-X table as tables. You need to use the append row to create a new line in that table and then populate the values accordingly. Oh, by the way, these variables are defined as globals on the top. So everything which is a table, so everything which comes under the table needs to be a SAP table factory control.table, and the importing parameter is well, I haven't created a separate value for that, because I'm updating that directly using the functions.export method. Okay, going back to the code, we have we dealt with the item updates. Now we go into the order text, which is going to be slightly simpler because there is only one structure, which is the order text. We don't have a separate structure for text and text X. So we create just one table. So T order text equals function tables and order text. Again, it's a table, so first we need to create a line in that table, so we call the method append row, and then we populate the fields. So we put in the document number. I put the item number 000 because it's a header text. That's the text type, that's the language, that's the other language code, and the what is it, the actual text. So if I look at the structure again, so document number, item number, text ID, language ISO, and I'm not populating this. So you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm skipping 6 and 7 is the actual text line. So I'm just dumping the text here. And that's all we need to do before we call the function. So we specify the header stuff, the item stuff. Well, the header stuff in two variables or in two structures, the item in two tables, and then the header and the text in one table again. And we just make sure that we get the return table in the t return variable, and then all we need to do is the call function. So function.call, and if it's false, so which means that we could not execute the function, then we just display some error messages and then put some stuff into the log saying that we failed to do that, and we update the status to 2. Oops, sorry. So this, which says it's failed, and if it wasn't false, so if the return of the call is true, which means that the function was successfully executed, then as I said before, here we are getting the return from the function, and all I'm doing here is I'm calling this function dump return, which basically is going to put every message that we get in the return structure into the log. So for example here, these are part of the return structure, and the v4233 is message class v4 and message number 233. That's what we are getting back from SAP. So let's say if the order cannot be changed because there are some errors on the order, you will get these errors back here in this return structure. And I put the code in a way that anything which is a warning or an information, it shows as blue, and the errors are shown as red. Good. So we are just dumping that on the screen, and then this is where we need to create a second RFC call, because as the documentation said, you need to call the BAPI transaction committee in order to save the changes to the database. So I'm creating another variable, a commit, which is the same type as function, and if you look this database commit in SC37, then it's fairly simple because there is only one parameter, which is the weight. I put an X here, so commit export weight dot value equals X, and again we want to get the return because if anything fails on commit, we will get these error messages on return. So we are calling the commit. Again, if it fails, we are just displaying some message, and if it doesn't fail, then we dump anything that we find on return to the log, and we are setting the status to this status to 1, which is saying completed, and then we exit from the method. And this line here is just some error handling. So if anything failed in this entire process which wasn't handled, then the execution jumps here, which again, it's just going to update the status to 2 just to say that something has failed. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to actually run the script and see how it works, or well, at least see the results of the update. So I have 2 orders here listed. I'm just going to set the status to 0 for both of them, so they get processed. As you can see, these are the new PO numbers, the receiving points, and the header text. And just to show you the orders before it's changed, we can see that the PO number on the first document is my PO1, the receiving point is my point 333, and if I go back and I look at the header text, there are no header texts at all. And the other order is the PO number is new 3, and shipping point is doesn't exist or not maintained, and the text is, again, there are no header text on the document. So without any breakpoints, I'm just going to hit the script. I get the log on screen, and I let it go. So now the item status changed to processing, completed, processing completed. So it was actually quite fast. So previously I said that this may take 10, 15, 15, 20 seconds. Well, it actually takes less. But anyway, you might be running a process which takes a lot of time. So this was just a comment on the mouse pointer to set it to hourglass. Okay, good. So let's go back to the documents and see what happened with them. Oh, actually, before I do that, let's see what we see in the log. So yeah, we logged into SAP and successfully we opened the first document, executed the change. We got some messages back saying that the order header structure and the item structure got processed and the order saved. And we did the commit. And then we moved on to the second document and we found some errors. So again, the header and the item structure got processed, but then there was some issue with the sales area and therefore the document was not changed. And the commit got executed, but nothing really happened. So again, as I said before, anything that you would, all the error messages that you would get on the by executing this on the test tool in SE37, you are getting this here as well through that return structure, which is being just dumped here in the log. And of course, because it's an order change, the changes or the validations that are being executed in the GUI in VA02 are also they also apply here, so you will get the same type of messages back. So we know that order number 2 didn't get updated, but let's look at order number 1. So you see that the PO got updated, the shipping condition got updated, receiving point, and if I go to the text, then we created the internal note in English language. So all the update that we did actually worked. And if I open 2, then yeah, nothing got updated here. So well, that's just proof that the script is working. And the other thing I wanted to do quickly is show a little bit of debugging. So let's say that I want to see what is happening here. So I'm just going to place a maybe a breakpoint here to see what is happening. I set the status to 0, I click on execute, I got the login again, and the execution is already here, so I'm just going to step in. I will step over to these lines and maybe let's look at this order item structure. And you can see that at the moment it is empty because there is 0 rows. So we do the append one, and now we have one line item, one line in the data structure, which is empty at the moment. And as we start filling it in, now the line item number is there, and now, oops, sorry, the receiving point is there. So yeah, it's here. So this is how the structure is getting maintained and populated by the logic, and probably we can see the same for the order text as well. So at the moment it doesn't exist because we haven't executed the set. So now it's a type of SAP table factory, and sorry, not parent. And yeah, once we do the append row, then we have the first item, and then we start maintaining the values. Yeah, that's it. And then last, let's look at this return structure as well. Oops. And it has 0 rows. Yeah, because we haven't executed the function call yet. So as soon as I do that, we'll get the messages back. So again, if I go to rows, and then that's what I was talking about. So you see, this is the message class, this is the message ID, the actual text, There is a bunch of other stuff here which I didn't care about, and then this is the type of the message. So it's S. Honestly, from the top of my head, I don't know what S is. But anyway, if it's E, which is error, then I'm displaying it with a red color. Otherwise, everything gets displayed as blue. And just as I said in before, you can make some changes here in the debug window. So if you are not sure how you need to write the code, how you need to access the lines or the individual items in the object, then you can just come to debugging and then basically try it out here and see what happens when you try to access this structure and or any of the properties of this object. So I don't think there is much else here, so I'm just going to let it go and then complete the script. I hope you find this SAP functions example on updating the sales orders useful. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.